There's nothing else on our agenda except for our budget hearing. So I am going to turn this over to Ruth to do the explanation, because I truly, unless somebody else in the budget subcommittee wants to work, the figures, no, Peggy is on vacation. The figures have changed so much from one time to another, and I truly can't follow them. So I'm going to let Ruth run us through these, and hopefully we'll figure it out. So, yes, you may.
Can she please use a mic?
I want to make a recommendation that we number the pages on the budget section so that when we want to refer to a section, we can easily all find it. Does that make sense?
Second.
Can we make the recommendation to start with this as page 1, which is on the back side of the agenda?
All right, did everybody hear that? Page 1 is the back side of the agenda.
Okay.
All right? I'll give everybody 3 minutes to do this.
Oh,
The pages are already numbered. They are? At the bottom? No, they're not. Yes, they are. You have a date, and then after the date, after 2018, you have a 1. Not if we're starting at the first one. Well, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I saw that.
so Pioneer's got 8.
That's the first one?
Yep.
No, okay, you just have to go up to 11.
I got 15. How about everybody else?
1
All
through
right.
11 comprises the actual budget numbers, and then the last pages in the packet are
Capital expenses.
the capital expense.
Yeah. But they're all things we need to talk about tonight. So, Ruth, you need this.
So what I'd like to do is be very brief with a bit of an overview of the district budget, and then each principal or administrator will come up to the probably mic up there and just kind of give you a little bit of overview of something that, things that were different, varied, good, bad, or indifferent. So just to be clear, it was brought to my attention that a vote on last budget meeting was,
No.
I'm on the, you've numbered the revenue sheet?
It's got to be tonight or never.
Thank you. You can help me there. Okay, so page 2, the revenue sheet.
On that one, yeah.
So basically, I interpreted the vote to be the same dollar amount as the prior year. That was not accurate, so the budget amount is actually $10,000 less than the prior year. And I'm sorry, it's really hard to see this in the light. So anyhow, getting back to the actual expense, which is what we're here to talk about, I'd like to tell you some of the major. Okay, if you look at the revenue sheet, we have 4,703, it's really hard to see this, 701, and that should be $10,000 less. Okay?
So the total state aid is actually reduced even more.
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
So total state aid, rather than being 4,703,701.
Can't hear you.
You gotta talk into the mic.
Total state aid, excuse me, the total state aid, rather than being 4,703,701, is reduced by $10,000. So it would be
Correct.
4,693,701, which would bring the total number at the bottom of the page
down to 14,173,033.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, the budget is a level-funded budget, which means that we are not spending more than we spent last year. The income, the interest town assessment was 300 and, I wish I had a light. Hold on, I can't do this. Hold on one second, I just need to get a light. Flashlight. Of course, it's not going to work tonight. All right. I'll try it without it, that's okay. So the increase to the town assessment is $393,906. There was a, oh, thank you very much. Much better. There's a reduction in state aid of $286,679, and there was a reduction in the local revenue, which was $107,227. So there's a net change in the revenue sheet of $3,000, which doesn't sound much, but we increased the town's assessment quite a bit, and it still didn't cover all the reductions in the state aid. The reason I believe that there was such an incredible reduction in state aid is that when we get our actual student data, the number of students that we have coming into the district, it is delayed by 1 year. We're always a year behind. So this was the year that we had some significant staff cuts, and we also had some significant loss of students at that year. So we're kind of getting, even though it was 2 years ago, we're getting hit with this financial dilemma in this fiscal year. The annual increases per contract or by law, the teachers, staff, and teachers and staff increased by $62,000, which is not very much. It's not significant. We cut assistant superintendent at $111,150. Special education increased by $400,000, and we. No, it's just I'm just reviewing it for you. Overview, and then if you have specific questions. So special education increased by $400,000 in the budget, but we also put almost $100,000 into circuit breaker and other funds to cover the needed money for the special education students. Central office actually had a reduction of $354,851, and a lot of that has to go with reduction in staff in that area. Bernardston Elementary School had an increase of $61,249. Pearl Roads Elementary School had a reduction of $72,527. Northfield Elementary School had an increase of $65,249. And Warwick Community School had a deduction of $4,678. The shared staff was reduced by $121,432. What that was we cut a bus, so the bus was reduced. We cut a little bit from technology, and we had new staff that replaced at a lower dollar amount. So those are kind of the general overview of where the district is and why why we have the budget we have in front of us. It's not a budget where we built anything back. It's a budget where we looked at where we could cut to come out to a level funded budget. Thank you. Yeah?
Comment on the $100,000 circuit breaker.
Yep.
Last meeting we had, it was 60,000. It's increased by 40.
So what we did was, we aren't touching any circuit breaker for this year, and we anticipate to get 60 to 80,000. And next year, we're going to get another, about the same amount from circuit breaker. Let's say it's another 60,000, that's 120,000 between the two. But we purposely did not touch that fund this year. So if the principals want to start one at a time and just kind of give a brief overview.
Ruth, I had a quick question on page 2, the revenue. The transportation reimbursement, the 784,000, was that what we actually received or what we budgeted? Because I don't think we received that much. I think we got close to 500,000.
I don't know which.
Page 2. Because it says we're down almost 300,000. I think the high number is what we budgeted and not what we actually received.
Right, so this budget has I think it's a 50% reimbursement. We didn't believe that we would get 90 or 100% next year.
Do you know what our actual reimbursement for FY18 was?
For FY18,
Yeah, this year.
it's in your sheet.
That's what I'm asking you. I think that's what you
Well,
budgeted.
that was,
I don't
what
think
was
it's
here is what was budgeted. And I don't know that. I was just balancing last year's figures with this. I'd have to look it up. I think we got 65%. Bob? Where'd it go? You probably want to talk to the mic so they can hear you.
So what we've developed is really a level services budget, not really a level budget. So as far as services go, staffing levels are adequate to maintain the services in the classroom, both in and out with special education, and with the Title I grants hopefully still continuing as well. There were cuts made to several lines to make sure that it would come in with the requested number. Some of them are of concern. At Bernardston, the substitute line is cut rather dramatically, so we'll just hope that we're able to make it through there. But as far as the services for the children go, I think we're in pretty good shape for staffing.
Excuse
And what-
me,
and what
this is
staffing-
page 4.
Correct. And as far as what staff have been working on of late for this year and will be going into next year has been professional development for social emotional learning. We've been doing a book study, and we're looking for ways to adequately address the concerns that our students are bringing into the classroom, and to give teachers and staff the tools in their tool belt to be able to address it properly. Pro Roads staff has been invited down and been participating in that professional development as well. We've had Chip Wood and one of his partners, Betsy, I'm forgetting her last name right now, that's been working with the staff in that realm as well. And then additionally up at Leiden, staff have been working on improving literacy, ensuring that books are leveled, that we've got the proper number of sets to address what's needed in each of the classrooms. If there are any questions about Bernardston or Pro Roads.
Is the STEM program still in?
There are supplies for the STEAM program at this moment, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The library supplies increased by $500. That was for
I'm sorry, which school are you looking at? Bernardston? Yeah, for the library supplies. That's what we're looking for this fiscal year, but it was reduced and it's trying to make sure that we're able to both repair any damaged books, but also to have a minimum complement of periodicals in the library for the students to take out. So there are some subscriptions there as well.
What about nursing supplies? You've got nursing salaries, you don't have nursing supplies.
That's a shared,
It's a shared one.
yeah. I think that may have been reduced, and I'm not clear on what the amount of money that's spent district-wide on nursing supplies, so I honestly can't answer that question.
I can answer that question. The nurses' supplies was cut, but we were hoping that the elementary and the middle school principals would actually use their supply money to cover the nursing money, because the budget was really tight.
Well, it seems like to add $500 to the library supplies line item, really doesn't make very good sense to cut nursing supplies. To buy books or to repair books, or they can't even buy the things that you need to take care of the children adequately. That's where I'm coming from. So I would ask that those line items be taken a look at across the board, not just at Bernardston, but all the elementary schools and Pioneer, so that the nursing supplies line item does not get cut. They need the supplies. Unless the parents want to bring their own Tylenol and Band-Aids and ace wraps and further furnish gloves to take care of the students with. These are health risks. We need those things in our school to take care of the kids.
Okay, so I'd say then that we would get together and speak with the nurse leader, look at what the budget is, and I would assume make some compromises between lines. Yeah, Sue?
So I understand that this year we have an experiment going on where we have 2 teachers in a classroom, and that's going to go to the end of the year?
It's also planned to go into next year as well. The second grade classroom has a very large number of students with needs that are on IEPs and social emotional issues, and this is a model that Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has been promoting, and we're giving it a run. And so far, just in the first 2 weeks that we've had, we've already seen some tremendous improvement.
So that's in the budget to continue next
It is.
year? And that's research connected, students working with researchers?
Not a researcher per se, just with literature right now. We haven't been to any workshops. I mean, we're doing a lot of reading, and then I had the 2 teachers go to Rowe Elementary School to do some observations for a day where they have a K2 classroom with 26 students, and came back with some good planning ideas.
That was my misunderstanding. I thought you were working with a researcher.
No, not at this time. This was through a Department of Elementary and Secondary Education suggestion. They've been promoting the idea for a bit. Yeah.
That number will
Okay.
come out next week when we...
I see Michelle raising your hands, but if I don't see you, stand up and yell, because I really have a hard time seeing.
I have a question about the shared
Why don't we have numbers to present?
Michelle, can you come down to the mic so we can all hear you? Sorry to do that to you, but...
Well, you can see it right there. The shared principal salary, it's $93,000 in Bernardston and $20,000 in Leiden. Is that, you could add those up and it's a total of $113,000? Is that what you're getting?
Not at this time, no.
So I'm questioning that. Are we supposed to take 93 minus 20, and Leiden pays 20,000 of your salary, or how does that go?
Well, it's not Biden, it's the whole district.
Yeah, but
But
You
it's
have
still
your
being
assessment.
negotiated.
it's 20,000 in the budget, and you're a what-time principal at Leiden? 0.5, 0.4?
It's what's needed, the
Yeah.
balance between the buildings.
Okay, so 0.35. Take your salary, 0.35, shouldn't that go to Leiden's budget? I'm doing math here to figure it out.
You're sending that question back to the budget committee? You're sending that question back to the budget committee?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be worked out on the floor.
Right.
Are you asking if Leiden's paying something, should there be an offset or something?
Right. It looks like the total I don't know what the total salary is. Looks like the total salary is in Bernardston, and then another 20,000 is being added to Leiden for a total of 113,000. If we were sharing a position, wouldn't you put .5, if that's what we're doing, in Leiden and .5 in Bernardston? I am questioning the dollars and how that was arrived at. Is anyone from the budget subcommittee able to answer that? No?
Yeah, we received the budgets for each elementary school from the principals, and they worked on their budgets along with Ruth. So those were the figures that were given to us. Just as you see them is how we've seen them.
But he's the principal, so he would know.
He may,
Okay.
So in fairness, I think that
Okay.
this has to go with contract negotiations with the principal with regard to accepting more responsibility for 2 buildings, and maybe the split doesn't seem right. And we have not necessarily finished negotiations on that. So I think that's the best answer I'm going to be able to give you at this time.
Okay. But it's concerning, because we're not really saving money then, what's the savings? So when will we have that? Will it be done before the budget?
wait a minute, Michelle, what the savings are, if Leiden had their own elementary principal, it would be far greater than $20,000.
Oh, I know that, but if we're saying that's not needed,
You still need a
So-
principal acting there.
Right.
So there's still some shared responsibility.
correct. That's what I'm trying to find out. Okay, I'll hold it until later.
You know, what we can do is we can get you, there's a lot of shared staff between the two, but because this is a new sharing of responsibilities, I hear what you're saying, and so instead of just putting them in shared staff, you would like to see kind of the split of the costs of all the professionals that go to Leiden, is what I'm thinking. Is that what you're?
Well, as we move forward, and we all know we're all looking at various savings, we need to have the correct data to make decisions going forward for the future. So, yes, that's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
To have the correct amount of money in the Leiden budget. Because as the Leiden Finance Committee and Chair of the Heart Committee, as we need the data to make informed decisions in the future. So that's why I'm asking these questions. I know they're hard questions, but.
I saw another hand out there somewhere. Yes, I think that was the one that went up. If you have a question, why don't you come up, just because we all need a chance to hear.
I would like the details of how the Leiden budget is going to go from teacher salaries from 216,000 to 186,000.
At this time, that reflects the reduction of 1 full-time teacher. It's a restructuring of the grade levels. At the moment, what I'm looking at is taking the preschool applications that are coming in right now and combining Pro Roads and Bernardston's and prioritizing 4-year-olds and those on special education plans, and having the Leiden preschoolers come down to Bernardston. And then the restructuring of the grade levels will be a K1 classroom, a 2-3 classroom, excuse me, a K1, a 2-3, and a 4-5-6 And so that would reduce the staff by one teacher.
Has the decision been made to pull the pre-K students, all of the pre-K students from Leiden to Bernardston?
No, it has not.
Thank you.
Was there somebody else that wanted to? Yes.
I was under the impression that there was a community forum on some topic similar along these lines, and I think it was canceled or delayed due to weather concerns. So I'm curious if it's really right to have a budget discussion when that community forum hasn't happened yet.
As a regional district, we have to have a budget hearing, and we have to have it now so that we can give the towns what their assessments are going to be. So this is just something that we actually do annually, and we are required as a regional school district to do it. And I'm sorry that it's kind of getting mixed up with other events.
There shouldn't be a program cut within our district like this and taken away from the budget of a position that's so important to so many people without hearing from the public first. So I would recommend that you don't cut that position or that money from that budget until the community has gotten together and had their discussion.
Thank you, Bob. I don't know who's up next.
Looks like Northfield. Well, no.
It looks like Northfield, and that would be on
6.
6?
So as Bob said, we are working with a level service budget. At this time, the staffing that we have should remain in place going forward for next year. And the programs that we have should also remain intact going forward for next year. There are some notable differences from the FY18 to FY19 budget that there may be questions about, so I'd like to address those ahead of the questions. One of them is our teacher salary line item. That shows an increase of about $98,000. I want to state first that that is not an increase in positions. Those are current positions that are in place now. At the end of last year, a year ago, we reduced Northfield staff by 1 with expected decrease in enrollment. That did not play out as we had expected, and therefore we needed to add a teacher into the budget in August, late August. And so that figure looks different, but we are working with 12 classroom teachers now, and that's what we're anticipating for next year. So part of that $98,000 includes a teacher that we currently have on staff that was not budgeted for last year. The second part of that increase is the special needs tutor, which is really misnamed. It is not a, she's a reading teacher, reading specialist. That there is a line item called SN tutor that's zeroed out, and that's moved up into our teacher line. She is not part of the special needs department, so that's more appropriate to have her in the teacher line item. And then the third part of that increase is our early childhood grant money has been decreasing over time. So our preschool teacher salary is not increasing, but the amount that is put into the Northfield budget has increased. So those three in combination account for that increase. There's not an increase in staff. So I just want to be clear about that. Yes.
With the special needs tutor that you have in there, that's added in, why isn't that in special needs?
Well, that was what I was saying, is
Yeah.
she's not part of the special needs department. It's a regular education intervention. particularly at the early levels, kindergarten, first, second grade. So she's a reading specialist, not part of the special needs department.
I understand, but when it says special needs and that, see what I'm saying? It's, okay.
Okay, I have another question, although I think it's very, very necessary. Transportation field trips, you've gone up quite a bit.
So
I
we
think
were
it's
at-
great, but
Yeah, we were at 6,000 something, I don't have the exact number, last year, and through the process of cuts, reduced it, I think 2 times to get it down to the 1,000, which covered just the very basic trips for 6th grade to come over for orientation, and our band to come over for their initial introduction to the band, and then their end-of-the-year program. So in an effort to see a few other things in there, I've increased it partway, but not the full, to the full original 6,000 that it was last year. One of the components of that hopefully would be for Northfield to participate in the turkey trot. We right now are the only elementary school that does not. That would be at a cost if we participated, and I was hoping that we could do that this fall. That did get cut. I'm hoping we could do it next fall. And then some small amount to help offset the field trips for our students, families. I also just want to point out that as you look at the special needs instructional assistants and the classroom instructional assistants, those numbers look really different, and that will happen from year to year as people, the instructional assistants might be reassigned in their role. So there's an increase in one and a decrease in the other, but I think overall it's actually a little less when you combine those two.
is there any?
Are there other specific, also, like Bob said, the substitute line item is increased, I think, by 3,000. I do see that as an under-budgeted item, so that is a concern moving forward. Originally, I had 33,000 in there. So that is something that we are running short on. Yes.
You just said the substitutes, last year it was 20,000 and this year you've got it for 23,000, so there's,
Right, so it's under budgeted this year. Last year, before cuts, it was proposed at 33,000. It was cut down to 20, and we have already well overspent 20,000.
Are there any questions of Megan? All right, thank you. Oops. All right, there's a mic up here if you would mind coming down.
Hi, Megan. Megan, could you please explain the, looks like $8,000 increase in the Northfield nurse's salary?
Good question. So our nurse, Kristen Whittle, is retiring. Right now, she is not full year, so she has a job share. I think it's 15 days that she doesn't work, and so it's a prorated salary that's in there right now. I would actually say that I would anticipate that amount of money that's budgeted to not be necessary, but in the process of hiring new, we're not sure what those qualifications will be and whatnot. I would imagine that will come down.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Megan, I'm just trying quickly to look at, under Bernardston, what their nurse's salary was.
Jeannie, can you use the mic?
Bob, do you have that figure for me?
Right now.
The nurse salary is 64,854 for Bernardston, so I really think that 70,000 for a new nurse in Northfield is very overinflated.
You are probably correct.
Because the nurse has been in the system for a while, so $6,000 is a huge amount of overinflation, and I would like to see a more realistic number for that position in Northfield.
Megan, I think that the money for the nurse leader that does I think it's like $3,000 is still in your budget, I believe.
I'm not sure about that.
Yes, I think that's where that extra 3,000 is. Because we don't know where the
More
nurse
than
leader stuff is.
3,000. That's a shared expense.
Any other questions of Megan? If not, thanks.
Thank you.
I bet Elizabeth is from Warwick is up next. And that must be the next page.
But it doesn't.
I'm going to
Page
speak
7.
to Warwick's budget. I'm not sure what page everyone's thinking about. 7, okay, thank you. We, again, are level services, that is to say that the 4 stellar classroom teachers that we have and the 1 outstanding special needs teacher that we have at Warwick will return, along with, I sincerely hope will be returning, along with the aides that we have in special needs and in classroom assistance. There is no increase in personnel at Warwick for next year. Everything that is not a salary line has been level funded, which is to say that there will be less because, of course, the costs increase. Now, the exceptions to that, as you will see, is we have $700 in our transportation field trips. That was restored. We had nothing this year. Many of our field trips can be managed by parents taking our children, but there are a couple that cannot. We go, our music program at the end of the year, instrumental musicians go along with Northfield on a school bus, and when we go to the turkey trot. But $700 represents about 2 buses for the year, and we can manage with that. The only other real increase is in principal supplies. We were at $450 this year, and we've overspent it. Postage is just what it is, and we do our best not to send things through the post, but there are some things that we need to. Apart from that, I think we restored $250 to our library supplies. Again, we had cut that beyond bare bones, and $500 to take care of our library supplies is not at all extravagant. I want to say that my teachers and our school, as I'm sure is true in the other elementary schools, is extremely efficient. We do not waste an hour, and we stretch every single dollar to make it as meaningful and valuable to our students as we possibly can. And I want to say that I am extremely proud of my students and my staff and the community and the achievement of the children in Warwick. And I'm sure the other principals feel exactly the same way. And this budget does not represent any extravagance. To take it down lower will be to cut the quality of what we can give the children, because we have truly stretched, and we do every day. Happily we stretch, but we do stretch. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Elizabeth, do you have a full-time nurse?
We do, and we have a child in the building who requires a nurse there full-time. Prior to that child arriving, and they are a Warwick resident, we had a half-time nurse, and I will say that we managed with that fine, but we couldn't do that now.
You have an extremely special medical needs student.
Yes, who is monitored throughout the day.
Does that student have a one-on-one?
No, that student is struggling with juvenile diabetes, and so it's a matter of monitoring multiple times a day. Okay, thank you.
Michelle, you had your hand up. Would you come up and ask that question?
Are you a part-time teacher as well as a principal?
No, I am a part-time employee of the district. I am only principal and I am part-time principal. And I am a .65 principal. I spend probably 80%, maybe more, in Warwick. I truly love my job. I do it happily, but yes, I don't think, yes, I'm not a part-time teacher, although I do go in and assist with math frequently, and I assist in other ways in classrooms.
Well, it pertains to the principal's salary, which is, if you look at your salary versus Bernardston, Leiden, I was questioning it. So you're paid someplace else?
Okay, how about talking into the mic so we can hear you?
No, I'm not paid anywhere else. I'm paid, I am paid a fraction of a principal's salary that coincides with the amount that I work. Actually, probably doesn't, but that's okay. No one's complaining.
So you're a .65.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
FTE.
Thank you. Are there other questions of Elizabeth?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you did well. No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pioneer. Pioneer is on the next page, 8.
All right, page 8. Good evening. I'm going to be brief. I want to speak to the fact that we've been working with our staff this year around understanding the budgetary process. In January, Jean spoke to the whole faculty about like a broad overview of what to expect over the next couple months. Last week, I addressed the faculty with their concerns, and so really coming back to them as frequently as possible with their questions and their concerns so that we can have those things ironed out, and that sort of anxiety level that goes up can come down a little bit with our support. Beyond that, I have a couple things just to point out about our budget. You will see in our lines, the principal and assistant principal travel and expense line has been reduced to reflect an accurate number of expenditure from this year, so we haven't been using as much as we had anticipated. I also want to clarify the piece about the guidance counselors. The line item for the guidance staff reflects our I'm sure. I'm sorry. On my version, principal expended travel expense went from 2,900 to 1,400. You got it? Oh, okay. All right. I had to double check too because. Okay. The other point that I wanted to clarify is that the guidance counselor line includes our currently employed staff, so that is a high school guidance counselor, a middle school guidance counselor, and a school adjustment counselor. It does not include what was a proposal for an additional school adjustment counselor for our Bright program, so that's not in there anymore, but it does include the 3 that are currently staffed at our school. Those are the things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Yep. Say it again.
Could you expand a little bit on that last guidance?
The one that was the proposal?
Right.
So we had proposed an additional school adjustment counselor for our Bridging Resilient Youth and Transition program, which is called the Bright program at our school, helping students who may struggle in graduating and seat time to be transitioned back into school after prolonged absences. So that program is really twofold. It's academic support and social emotional support, and really requires either an instructional assistant to support that, the academic component, and a school adjustment counselor to sort of manage the caseload of the students, the family outreach, and the services. So we had proposed that addition, and unfortunately, it's not in this budget.
How much was that?
I believe it was originally in there as $60,000 as a.
That
A ballpark number?
Full-time position?
That would be a full-time position that we had proposed.
And I understand that we really need a position like that to service our students.
I would agree with you.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's a horrible place to have to cut, or to cut.
Right.
Even if you had a half-time position,
Mhm.
we need that for our kids.
I agree. And with our focus on social emotional learning and the grants that we have this year, that would be wonderful to see in our budget. Mhm.
I have a question, couple questions, Jen.
I'll do my best.
One was, let me see, athletic transportation is down about 15,000. Is there a reason for that?
So my understanding from that is that the additional funds have been transferred to user fees and gate tickets for both the athletic transportation and the referees. So those reductions are actually being picked up somewhere else.
Okay, that was one of my next questions.
Okay.
Further on down, custodial salaries, it looks like we're down about $5,000. Is that because we're not having somebody part-time, or why? Doesn't seem like they take a decrease in salary if it was the same personnel.
I don't have the answer for you on that,
Okay.
but I can write down that question and get back to you
that would
if
be
that's
great.
helpful. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Excuse me, I have a question. Jen?
Yep.
Maybe the lights are getting to my brain. I'm looking at both the principal and the assistant principal's salaries, and they're both down.
Right.
For fiscal 19 from fiscal 18, is that correct?
So they're actually they're reflecting our actual salaries that we received this year. So they're level funded. The number in fiscal year 18 is not the accurate number that
was
we.
too. All
Okay,
right.
so the one that's in fiscal year 19 is the actual level funded salary.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I'm saying, wow, did they volunteer to take that? Which doesn't sound appropriate.
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify
Sure.
or ask a question again about the guidance counselor situation. You
Sure.
said there's high school, middle school, and a school adjustment.
That's correct.
Those are in the budget.
Those are in the budget, yep.
But not the one that was proposed, the new one that was proposed.
The new one, yep.
So this is not a cutting. I thought somewhere I heard it was being cut. In other words, it's not, a new one is not coming on, but is it a cut in personnel as well?
It is not a cut, but you'll
Okay.
see that, so this is the funniness of this, is that fiscal year 18, and I believe I have this right, so maybe Ruth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 127,983. It's actually going up.
Right.
But at the end of last year, we had in our budget only for 2. So we were able to hire the third back at the end of this school year. So the 155 isn't an additional staff member. It's actually the 3 that are currently in our building.
I see.
Does that make sense?
That makes
So
sense.
it's a little bit
Thank you.
funny.
I just
Yep.
didn't understand.
Right, and then there was the proposal for the
Cut.
additional, so there would have been a 4th.
So there would
in
have
that
been a
line.
4th, but there's not going to be a 4th, but it was not somebody being cut.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
What is the educational background of your adjustment counselor?
Our adjustment counselor currently is an LICSW, a licensed social worker.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone have questions of Jen? If you have them, why don't you come up to the microphone and check her out?
Hey, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's come to my attention that there's been some discussion about cutting arts and music education in Pioneer in order to balance the budget. And since we're having this budget hearing without a public forum, I'd just like to take a moment to just speak a little bit about that. Since you don't know who I am, I'll introduce myself. My name is Emma Louise Saint-Amand. I went to NES and PVRS. I graduated in 2010.
Nice.
And in both of those schools, I took part in both music and art and theater education. After graduating, I attended Ithaca College, where I earned bachelor's degrees in both classical music performance and music education. I'm a New York State certified public school music teacher, K-12, and in a few weeks, I'll be graduating with a master's in classical voice performance from Frost School of Music in Miami, Florida.
Congratulations, that's
Thanks,
great.
thanks.
It's nice to meet you.
Yay, Emma Lou. Missed you, friend.
Thanks, guys. So, as a music educator in New York and also in Florida, we thought a lot about, my colleagues and I thought a lot about what we needed to do to prepare the children for their life after school. And so the world we're living in right now is full of technology, labor, and policy landscapes that are changing so quickly that our students are not going to be able to be prepared for them in school, because by the time they graduate, they will already have changed. So when I was a teacher in New York, my colleagues and I decided that what we needed to teach the children was not how to use a computer, but rather the soft skills that go with that, like critical thinking, creative thinking, working on a team. And music and arts education has overwhelming evidence that supports the benefits the children receive in those areas from participating in that arts education. I'll be emailing you all tomorrow with the sources for this, so you can read through the peer-reviewed literature if you want. And right now, I think more than ever, we're seeing that we need kids to be graduating from high school who have the critical thinking skills to delineate the information they're receiving as being good and bad information, to work with the people around them that are going to be from a global community, not a local community, and also to be able to flexibly solve problems when the things we used to be paid to do are now done by machines. This is going to affect all children throughout the United States. The place we were having this conversation was in a very small rural school district in New York in the Finger Lakes, just like this one. So I just wanted to express my support for music and arts at Pioneer in the strongest possible terms. The early education I received here has allowed me to have my career. I have worked nearly exclusively in the field of music and arts since I graduated from undergrad. I'm a member of the South Florida Professional Theater League and also the American Musicological Society. And after I graduate, I'm about to start a second master's in musicology in preparation for a PhD. Wow. So without the instruction I received here, in this building, in this very room, and also over at NES, I wouldn't have been able to do any of that. So I apologize for taking so much time from the meeting, but I wanted you to very, very carefully consider the lengths you're willing to go in order to balance the budget for this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy.
The STEM there's a question for the STEAM or STEM initiative. I believe that money is still in there.
STEAM should have been put back in.
At our,
yes, there is. Yes, on the first page there. Yep, so it's $10,000. It's a bit of a reduction, but it's still there as a priority.
Yeah.
Yes.
And last week, we restored the elementary school music program. So, yeah, that was something that we felt was really important, and I did because I know you and love you.
And I believe there was never a look at cutting the high school program. Well, eventually, if the elementary schools had been cut, that would eventually reflect in the high school. So, but as of last week, the elementary school band program and choral are intact.
I have a question about special needs instructional assistance.
Okay, let me find that line here.
So it's sort of,
Yes.
see it?
Yes, I
Under
do.
special need tutor.
Yes.
So it looks like there's a $37,000 reduction.
Yes, that's
So I
what I'm
just
saying as
feel
well.
like we've been cutting that line and cutting that line and cutting that line.
Right.
For years now, and it makes me very nervous. Can you describe the plan?
I cannot describe the plan to you at this moment, but it is one of those places that teachers are expressing concern. So I'm listening to that and working with Chris and Jean to figure out a plan for that, those needs of those students. So I'm sorry that I don't have a specific plan. I don't know, Chris, if you want to. Chris, do you want to come over here?
Someone made reference to the fact that the practice has been to cut aides, but I gave that information to you, Sharon, a few months ago, remember that? And we actually had the same number of aides, because we will provide aides for students who need them. That's not, from whoever budget it comes out of, it is the district. But we're just trying to really do it in a more thoughtful manner. So to give kids what they need, but be sure that we have an exit plan so we don't build up a dependency on aides as well. So, and it's a big push from the state to be more mindful of that. So we're really concentrating on that. But that said, if the team determines that an aide is needed, then that's what we'll do, always. Robin, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I believe that we spoke about this at a prior school committee meeting.
Yeah.
That there is a lot of good current research that indicates that spending your budget on aides in a classroom is not necessarily the biggest bang for your buck in terms of the benefits to the special needs population.
Right. And that's another reason why Bob is having 2 teachers in a class instead of hiring another aide in that class. It's more effective. That's out of the Pioneer budget, and those are cuts to potentially to students who are no longer with us. We have some students who have aides who are going to be going to tech next year. And it may work out that students move in that we need to get aides for. We will always provide aides for when it's warranted. But it's a team decision, it's a thoughtful decision, and at this point in time, I felt Jean and Jen and the people who put together the Pioneer budget felt that comfortable with this decision.
Kathy, did you have your question answered, or are you getting your exercise walking up and down?
My question was also directly related to that line item. And I guess, Chris, I would just like to throw out the caution, because we're talking to the greater public, and put out the reminder that there is a huge difference between a special needs student who needs a one-on-one, of which we try desperately to be very, very cautious when making that assignment, and special needs students who need the support of a paraprofessional in the classroom, but they are one of 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 kids in that classroom. And so I just put that word of caution out there, because sometimes we get wrapped up in the thinking that we're cutting one kid's person or whatever, and sometimes we're talking about assistance for multiple children.
Yep.
Thanks. Is there any other questions of? All right, I think not. But since Chris is up here.
Because I'm here already. All right.
Special education?
Special education, and that is page 11.
All right. Thank you.
So, my budget is up quite a bit, but a huge part of that is transportation. That has been taken, usually in the past, it's been taken out of my special ed grant that I get from the state. But this year I put it back in the regular ed budget. It goes up every year, even though the number of students out of district is about the same. The state has no control or no blocks in place for the companies that provide the transportation. They can go up as much as they want, really. But I'm mandated to provide this transportation to special needs students. So it's a huge expense. It is a huge part. It was sucking up most of my money from the grants. So it has to come from somewhere. And one thing that I've checked with other transportation companies, and the way I'm using Vanpool is still relatively cheaper than that. Just recently, Gil Montague, the budget director from Gil Montague, Joanne Blyer, has reached out to other districts, including Pioneer, and we're looking at combining together to get a bid for transportation, if at all possible. But it's kind of tricky because it depends on where the student is, because they get picked up at their door, at their house, and brought to their specific school. So if there's any ones that are in common and we can get it cheaper to combine with them, I will definitely, I've already sent them the information, so I'm hoping that something can come out of that. But really, that is the biggest increase, or the biggest part of my budget. And it's a mandated service and I have to do it. So, yes. So,
How many students are we transporting for 350?
out of the 8 that I am transporting, that's about 7.
And is it true that special ed transportation is not part of the regional transportation reimbursement from the state?
I think, Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong on
true?
this. We're not, our budget for transportation is not part of the state.
Special ed transportation
Yeah,
isn't
right,
part of the
right,
reimbursement
reimbursement.
formula
It is
for
not.
regional transportation.
I don't believe that's true, because when we are a regional district, and we transport them all over, so that is not, I do
I-
not believe that to be true. think it
I
is.
think that's one of the reasons we put it back in the budget, to see if we could get more. You know, previous to this, it was always not part of that.
Got
So
it.
we're giving it a try this year. It has never been in the past. But again, we're trying everything that we possibly can to see if we can get some
So what
reimbursement.
the law says is, in a regional school district, if you transport somebody further than 1.5 miles, then you can, that's the benchmark. So these students that go more than 1.5 miles to their placement fits in that category.
So we're just trying everything that we can think of to try to get some money back on this.
I'm just looking through here at the bottom line. There's a difference, and, well, actually, first one is teacher salaries, that's $22,000 worth of new money. Speech is down a little bit, 20,000, and then, what was the other one? OTPT is a difference of about 20,000 in that line. Can you just explain those to me?
Okay, well, OT and PT are part-time employees. The PT person was working only 2 days out of the week in the district. I've increased that to another additional day. We have a lot of preschool, kindergarten students who are coming into our programs who are really dysregulated, have a lot of issues, and they need a lot of help in fine and gross motor skills, so it's really needed. The same with OT. She currently works 3 days. I increased her time to 2 additional days a month, so that's an increase. The reduction in the speech and language salaries will probably be made up for out of my grant. And the 22,000 from, that's from Northfield, that's picking up an aid. I usually pay for the specialized programs that I've started. I have 2 in Northfield. So those aids will be in my budget. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
I know you refer sometimes to the grants.
Yes.
How much are the grants, and where do they come from, and what do they cover?
Okay, the biggest grant that I get is called the Special Needs 240 grant. It comes through the federal government, through the state, and it's varies from year to year, depending on your population. So every year that I've been here, it's gone down. This past year, it was $307,000, and I don't know what I'm going to get this year. So I had another reason for me to transfer the transportation funds into the regular budget, because I'm not sure how much I'm going to get, and I need to cover my specialized programs, and we'll see. I honestly don't know. They haven't put those numbers out yet. They won't until the summertime.
So when the grants come in, or when you determine how much it will be, does that cover some of these expenses, or are there other expenses?
Possibly. I have, as I said, I pay some of my specialized program salaries for teachers and aides out of the grant. So I'm fairly confident that I will have enough money to cover that, and then I'll see if there's stuff left over, I use that for, well, for instance, I'm still planning on using some of that money for when kids stay after school here at Pioneer and get tutored or homework help, I need to pay the aides for that time. That generally comes out of the grant.
I see.
You know, things like that.
So there's additional monies that are needed.
Yes, yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions of Chris? Michelle? Come on down. All right.
Yes.
Can you explain the summer services, was her question?
Summer services, for some reason, were never put in the budget, even though I always had to pay for them. Because, again, it's another mandate that for a certain percentage of special needs children, I have to provide them with services in the summer so they don't regress substantially. All kids kind of regress over the summer because it's summertime. But some of my students might regress severely. So I have to prevent that from happening. And I believe well, I know what used to happen was that it was taken out of the grant monies to pay tuitions and stuff like that for other schools, but it was never specifically labeled. But it is a real expense that I have to cover every year. So that's why we put it in this year, so that you know that it exists, for one, and to make sure that I can pay for it too, because I have to. Again, and I'm very careful about that. You can ask my teachers, I drive them crazy, because they have to prove to me that these kids need these services. It's not just because, oh, it'd be nice if they got it, it would be helpful. It has to be something that, because they really need it. So.
I just wanted to clarify, so let's say you got a $300,000 grant, and you met all the needs within your department.
Yes.
And you had monies that you had added into the budget that were covered by the grant. Could some of that money go back into the general fund, so like to cover maybe a half-time adjustment counselor? Or make sure the kids have their STEM program, or?
Well, I could hire the adjustment counselor, yes. STEM program, I'm not, yes, like Gail is our grants manager, so.
Grants have to be written according to the regulations that are set out by either the state or the childhood program or wherever you're writing the grant to acquire the funds from. And you have to prove to whichever organization you're writing the grant to that that indeed is what you're spending the money on. If, for whatever reason, you don't spend the money on that, you have to write an amendment, and it has to be approved. And if the amendment is not approved, usually they are, because you have to write a description of why you're writing the amendment and what you're using it for. It's usually written at least a month before school ends. Most of them are due by mid-April to the end of April. And if you do not spend, right? If you do not spend all of the grant money, you must return it to the state or the childhood department or whomever, again, you're writing the grant for or from, you're getting the funds from.
Can I ask?
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask for more clarification? Because I might be wrong, but I think that what Sharon was saying is that The grant is written to cover certain special education needs. And if those special education needs, rather than being covered 80% by the grant, are able to cover 100% of the need, then whatever money was budgeted from the school could go back into the general fund. Because it's not putting the grant money into the general fund. The grant is covering the special education need that then the school does not have to cover.
That's correct. But I think Chris will also tell you, would agree, that she's writing the grant specifically for positions or programs that she's counting on that grant money for. In addition, because we know we're going to get at least, hopefully, at least the same as we got last year. What's in the budget
Is
are
above that.
Different, right, different needs, different
Right.
positions, different supplies, as opposed to what she's writing in the grant.
Oh,
Or
okay.
writing in the grant.
Okay. I think that just better answers the question that was asked. Thank you. No, I got it wrong.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank
Karen.
Is it like $10,000? Or how much money are we talking about in the grants?
No, it's, last year was 307,000.
Okay, I'm
But
just, yeah.
I don't know what it's going to be this year. I have not got that, they put them out in the summertime.
Okay, thank you for that
Yeah.
ballpark figure. I'm just trying to match up all the numbers on all the different pages that I have.
Thanks. Oops, I see a hand back there. Come on up, or a screen, one or the other.
Just really an observation and a statement. A lot of time goes around Pearl Roads as far as a budget of $480,000, $500,000. A lot of time is spent figuring that out. Special needs transportation, 7 kids, $350,000. I hope a lot of time is spent trying to figure that out.
Yes.
Because that seems like a very bad deal for the district.
We've been walking around that.
That's a raw deal for this district.
It is, we agree.
Just so you know, it's an observation.
Yeah. Go ahead, Judy. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the students, the special needs students that require this transportation require very special transportation. They're picked up at their door. They generally, frequently have to have a person with them during the transportation. And there are very minimal companies that offer the transportation. There may only be one in this area for all I know. And we, yes, all endeavor goes out to justify that. And it's not hard to justify it when you have legal restrictions on what has to be provided and only one place providing that transportation.
We look at it all the time and say, what can we do to fix this? And we haven't come up with a good, solid suggestion yet, but if anybody has one, let us know. Now we have shared staff. Do you want to address that? Have you done also the district administration?
So you want to do shared staff next? Let's go back up a page. These are, again, the best estimates we can have. Our special ed tech coordinator left. We reduced that salary a little bit, 71,000. Travel, 3,000. The significant technology, we have 2 new people, one doing the data and one doing the actual fixing of the computers. Those salaries are the $63,720. We reduced the district annual renew technology by $30,000. Not that we wanted to do that. We really don't want to do it. As we refine this budget over time, we're going to have to try to get some money back in there. But we were starting to make some choices about, do we cut teachers or do we cut things? And so we did reduce that, which none of us really want to stay that way. So we're hoping moving forward, as we refine the budget, we can maybe do some money there. Everything else is pretty straightforward. You have shared teacher salaries, and that went down. And I looked at the, I'm not quite sure it went down because we didn't, we had one teacher leave and we got a part-time young one, so there was just a little bit of a change in that line, but all those same shared teachers are still here. We did cut the shared resources, 8,000 and 3,000, which we had wanted for our STEM initiative, but again, we had to put things before teachers. Shared professional development went down by $5,000, again, same thing. This is all just to try to balance the budget. As you go further down, there aren't really any other big changes. PV transportation, that's going down by $62,000. We're hoping that we can cut another bus because so many of the buses are very limited with passengers. So we're going to take some time this spring and actually redistrict the buses ourselves and see if we can make it more efficient. So that's your shared staff. Does anybody else in the audience out there have a question? Can you come down to the mic, please?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you tell me a little bit about this resource officer and what their duties are?
The resource officer is an employee of the police department in Northfield. A resource officer does a variety of things. They are obviously there for, safety and security. They also do some kind of work in the classrooms when, a topic comes up that would be fitting.
When would it be fitting?
When would it be fitting? Like if you had somebody talking, if you had any time you might be having conversations with students about activities or events or, it's hard to, off the top of my head, for the high school.
Have them talk about computer safety and.
Oh, that's true. Thank you, Bob.
They come to the elementary school, or he comes to the elementary schools and talks about social media, internet safety, and
Right.
computer safety.
So if you can't hear Bob, the resource officer this year has made a point of going to all of the 4 elementary schools and doing programming and getting to know the students. It's really kind of multifaceted.
I believe, and I think you were saying this, that he's also come into the civics class to educate students about their rights in interacting with law enforcement and the judicial system.
So the resource officer is a police officer that goes from place to place doing educational work?
That's a piece of his job, yes.
Is there, I just wonder, 28,000 is a lot of money. It sounds like people are really struggling to get funding for a lot of needs. And I know that a lot of times police officers will volunteer to do stuff like that with their communities. And I wonder what the rest of the job is besides educating kids about safety with computers and social media and things like that. And are there any studies available to the committee about whether or not having a police officer on campus actually makes people safer?
Technically, it's a law that says that we're supposed to have a resource officer, and it's not necessarily mandated. It says that we should by law, but there's no funds that go with that law, so there's not a hard and fast rule that you absolutely have one, but the majority of the school districts in the area have resource officers, and it's for a multitude of reasons, and they're a great asset to the school. I hear what you're saying. It's all tough choices, but these were choices that were made collaboratively, not in isolation.
I believe it's, don't we have to write for an exemption if we don't have one?
We would have to be granted a waiver.
Granted a waiver if we don't have one.
So we have an exemption.
No,
We had
no,
one.
One.
year, probably in
Would have been 14, 15?
14, yeah, it's either 13, 14, or 14, 15. An exemption was written by the superintendent at the time to the state, and the waiver was granted. You can only be granted one waiver to not have a student support officer. And just additional information is, the town of Northfield pays 40% of this person's salary. So we have the advantage of having this person full-time in our school district, but the town of Northfield is paying for the majority, well, more than 40%. Is it 40, Lois? It's 40%, isn't it? Not sure. Okay, I believe it's 40%.
Mhm.
And benefits. Right. Unfortunately, given the state of our world right now, one of my hats is safety and security, and my conversations with the state police that I work with, it's really, they're saying it's really imperative now to have a liaison in the role of student support officers working in our districts.
Okay, thank you.
And just, sorry, one more thing.
Yeah.
On our website, there is a link to the student support officer through the Pioneer.
Through our
Pioneer website, and it gives you all kinds of data and information about what he does in our district.
Mm-hmm.
He did a presentation, the police department did a presentation at one of our school committee meetings, and it's all on that link.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Want to come up? And then Bob, you're next.
Please forgive me if you've already talked about this. Is the purpose of the resource officer primarily security or education?
Both.
So, in what proportion? Because one resource officer traveling between all the schools, I'm not sure how effective that would be in terms of security. So I'm wondering about that, so sorry if you've already talked
It
about it.
depends on the day, if it's security or education. It ebbs and flows. It's what's needed at the time, when he's here, and what he's doing. It's not like there's a schedule of where he's going to be. It's more of a free-flowing job where he's where he needs to be. And when he gets a chance, he really likes to get out to the elementary schools. Does that help? It's not, there's no job, like.
So what will he be doing with the money that we give him? You know what I'm saying? So has the district thought about what that job will truly entail day to day? So what are his duties in terms of, I know you've said the education, but is the purpose security or is it education?
Gail, maybe you can answer that.
And if you check on that link, there is an immense amount of data also on the link about what he does. And student support officer, I'm going to say in any district, the majority of that person's time is at the higher level school, whether it's the high school, here it's in Greenfield, it's the middle school and the high school. And they're well utilized. And in the great world, every school would have a social security officer. A student support officer.
Can I just clarify, when Gail says that there's a great deal of data available on that website, our school resource officer, and I don't know of anywhere else where this happens, but our school resource officer actually builds charts of what he's doing day to day and logs it on the web for all of you to monitor.
I'm interested in what tech hardware you're proposing to purchase for the $50,000?
With what?
With the 50,000 increase?
An
So
increase?
it's 35,000 on one line and 15,700 on another line.
35,000?
Yeah, and 15,000
15 in the
on two
elementary,
lines
he's
below.
correct.
One for high school and one for elementary.
Where is it on the share?
And elementary tech hardware.
Yeah, if you have it in front of you, I can't find it, go ahead.
Elementary level, it's 2 or 3, use the mic.
I'm sure you can't hear you, Gail.
You can talk to the person.
At the elementary level, for that line, it is 2 sets of Chromebooks for student use within the classroom. And Jen has the answer for upper, it's the one-to-one initiative for Chromebooks at Pioneer, starting at the 9th grade level.
For the 9th grade.
Complicated to get out of this row. So, my understanding of the PVRS tech hardware, $35,000, is that the one-to-one initiative for Chromebooks starting at the 9th grade level, so that every student in 9th grade would have a Chromebook, and that would build over the course of time, so that every student in the district over time would have Chromebooks.
I didn't think we voted that in last time. I thought it was voted down.
Who's it trying?
Okay.
Jen, are those Chromebooks to remain in the school, or again, are we talking about the students bringing them home with them?
So typically in a one-to-one, the students have access to them in the school. They bring them to school, and they also go to and fro from school to home.
Yep.
Do you remember that we voted that down?
No, I didn't, but we can look back at the notes.
Yes.
I think not because we don't think that our kids need technology, but I think we also are faced with the fact that some of our children do not have access to the web. And that is a problem. Maybe someday they will, but right now they don't. I think that was one of the reasons why we were questioning it. Jean, you had something?
I have always raised the question about the replacement of the Chromebooks. If they're broken, who does that fall upon? And that's just seeing how irresponsible 9th graders can be. I have some big concerns.
In regards to the Chromebooks, what I would like to say as a school committee personnel is that we are always late to the party with our students. So as far as Chromebooks are concerned and the one-to-one initiative, if you folks read the newspaper or check out all your surrounding public schools, almost every school has the one-to-one initiative. Whether it is one class or the whole 7th to 12th. I know another school in Franklin County who put it in there for 18 budget, didn't get it. It's in there for their next year's budget. To say that not every child who does not have internet service in their home, to say that we do not learn or advance our kids in regards to technology is a poor and sorry excuse. And I am appalled that we are this far behind. And no matter how we start it, if we start it with just 2 grades, one in the elementary, one in the high school, it should have been started 3 years ago when the one-to-one initiative first came out in 2015. We are late to the party, people. And technology is where it's at. Technology is global, not just local.
Megan, do you want to speak?
I just want to speak to the elementary needs. We have almost 190 students in our school. We have grades 3 through 6 vying for 25 Chromebooks. And we have teachers that are very interested in using those Chromebooks as they should be. Students who are very interested in using those Chromebooks. We need to see that integrated into the classrooms. And we can't do that right now with 25 Chromebooks. It's just not enough. We need to at least triple that. I'm looking for just 25 more so that we can get access, more equal access for our upper grade teachers. In addition to that, an overall inventory of our school's technology indicates that we are insufficient with that. Our lower grades need more iPads. Our teachers' computers are at the end of their life and are breaking, and so we are very short in technology and definitely behind in what we should be providing our students. I'm not looking for a one-to-one at the elementary level, just more access so that we can do the very bare minimum that we need to, and I think the teachers would agree with that.
Can I just, and I'll direct this to Megan and Elizabeth and Bob, how does the lack of everyday access affect how the kids are able to perform on the computer-based MCAS? And how does the lack of available computers and Chromebooks affect your ability to administer the MCAS?
Actually, that's a good question, and that is one of the challenges as well with a computer lab. We have 24, I think, computers, but in some grades, as we need to test, we have more than that. So we need Chromebooks and the lab available. We have small groups that need to take place in different parts of the building. So it is very tight, and it ends up stretching out our testing period because we don't have enough access to devices.
Testing for longer in a year because you don't have enough computers.
Yeah, it was pretty significant last year. I'm trying to find creative ways of decreasing that this year. And then the less access students have to computers leading up to the testing, then of course that makes the actual taking of the test more challenging, never mind the content. So third grade and up, we're computer-based all the way through for MCAS testing, so they definitely need much more access than they have now.
Can I just, I want to say that louder into the computer. And Elizabeth and Bob, can you tell me if this is happening in your schools too? We are losing more instructional days to testing because we lack the computers to test kids on?
I want to say that the numbers are, the differences in the sizes of our schools matters here. I have a computer lab that is shared between 4 classrooms. I have about 60 students in the school. Megan has many, many more classrooms. She still only has 1 lab. So I just want to say there is going to become a time when what we have at Warwick needs to be replaced because it's all about the same age. I can see it coming on the horizon, but right now it's not equitable. We have per student much more access to technology than they have at Northfield, and I fully support that the Northfield school get more. Thank you.
At Bernardston, the MCAS testing window will run a little over 6 weeks, where the lab will not be in use for anything but testing. MCAS tests are untimed, so that if the children don't finish the test come recess or lunch, they'll be given a break and then are allowed to come back and log back in and continue on the test. But this year, it's not only the English language arts and the mathematics, but for 5th grade, the science, technology, and engineering MCAS is also online. So it's a large window that the lab's not available for students, right?
I just wanted to mention that in, I think it was 2015 or maybe 2016, when officials from NEASC, I think that's what it is, came to our schools in the district to assess the education here, and they made a report, and I remember clearly that one of the items in the needs improvement category was better technology. It was written in several places throughout the report. And I know we've struggled with the cost. We've had discussions for years and years on the school committee about getting up to date on this. And I would urge us to do what we can and not take this out of the budget, because I think it's really, really important to have it in there.
So is this a buying program or is this a leasing program on the computers?
It's a purchase.
Have you looked into a leasing program?
Our technology people have done that in the past and found it not as something we should do, but I'll pass it on to Ruth because she has the answers.
The netbooks are so inexpensive now, it's almost like buying a book. It's not like what it used to be when you were buying larger computers in mass. And so, you know, to buy the netbooks outright, it makes sense. Leasing equipment would have made sense too. A few years ago, there was a big purchase for $400,000 worth of technology all at the same time. And unfortunately, we're entering into an era where all of that technology is declining at the same moment. And so that's why I think if we do, you know, entertain, you know, larger computers, that you would get into a lease, not own, you know, lease for 3, keep for 4, and take that cycle. But that's not been the history here. But for these netbooks, it was a specific thing, and plus the cost is so limited, it's not something you would end up leasing.
I see a hand up there.
I just wanted to caution, you know, like I'm hearing two things that are being emphasized. Keeping up with the Joneses, what does someone else have? And also getting technology to make sure we do well on the tests. I actually think you should get this technology, but you have very talented people working for you who know how to use it to engage kids in problem solving, being creative. I see the work come home. So concentrate on that. When you're going to ask for this money, put that out there. I want to hear from those people, because incredibly talented people.
I can't believe we're even talking about this. A week ago, we were going to cut the music program, and now we're talking about spending $50,000 on computers. This is not the financial time or the climate to be spending that kind of money on computers. If we're going to spend $50,000, let's get some more teachers back here. Let's institute some more programs for the students.
So hi, many of you know me, I'm Lynn Hansel, and I wear 2 hats here. I'm a teacher in one of the schools. I also am a homeowner in Northfield. It's difficult for me to speak here today because I feel like it may be seen that I have a bit of a conflict of interest. I'm speaking to you today as a taxpayer in Northfield. My husband and I recently built a home. We would like at some time to be able to resell our home for the value that we put into it. I think every single thing that's in this budget is worthwhile, including the technology, including the arts and music, including student-teacher ratio, including all of it. And I think when we compare Pioneer to the districts around us in an age where we have school choice, we need to have these things in our budgets in order to stay viable. We need technology, yes. As a teacher, I need technology in my classroom, and yes, there are complications around the MCAS and everything, but the districts around us are already offering those programs. If I were a parent and I had choice, where would I bring my child, my 9th grade student? It's kind of a no-brainer. And we need all of these things in our district. And all of the residents of all 4 of these towns should be out here today saying every single thing in this budget is important if we want to maintain our towns as viable places for people to come here and move and continue to be successful. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that if I could. Everything in this budget is necessary. needed. However, there's more to a town or a community than just a school. We have an aging population in our communities. Bernardston, for instance, almost 50% of our people in Bernardston are seniors. They don't have two incomes, a husband and a wife that are working. They only have one income. So we have to look at this, and I agree that we should look at technology, and I don't think we need to spend $50,000 on technology. If you have the money at home, buy your kid a notebook. That's what we used to do when we had kids. We took care of it. Don't expect your neighbors to spend all of their money on your kids. Do something yourself.
Hi, I'm Deborah Potee. I first want to thank Lynn for bringing this conversation to a different level. I want to acknowledge the hard work of all the teachers and all the staff who work at all 4 elementary schools and the high school. The budgets that have been presented today are very, what's the word? Very limited in the sense that it is just covering the bare minimum. And the issues with not investing in the schools, it is so hard for me to believe that we can make decisions on the backs of our children. I just cannot believe that the good people who live in these 4 communities don't care. I go to the winter and the spring concerts. I see people of all ages there supporting the arts. I go to basketball games. I see people of all ages. I go to the Pops concerts. I go to the theater. I see people of all ages who benefit from all the things that happen at this high school and at the 4 elementary schools. And it's not just about what my income is or how can I spend my money. It is about making sure that these 4 towns do not die. And these 4 towns will die without good schools. That is the bottom line. People will not move to these communities. You will not be able to sell your houses. I heard from Pam Veith, who is a real estate agent, and as she put it in the most amazing way, she said, Northfield has very little. What Northfield has is a good school system and some good people. But without a good school system, people will start to think, are these people really good if they do not spend the money that needs to be spent on the schools? And I cannot say enough that everyone of every age needs to invest in the schools. It's the number one thing. The number one reason people move to a certain community is because of the schools. Without a good school system, no one will move to Northfield or Bernardston or Leiden or Warwick. And I am begging the people, the good people who volunteer their time on the budget committees in all these towns to really, really present this budget as it is. I wish it were bigger, more fulsome, but I hope they do absolutely nothing about changing it, because all 4 principals have worked hard, or 3 principals have worked hard to make it as lean as possible. It cannot become less. Thank you.
My question is on the shared staff page. Just looking at the shared teacher salary line, there's almost $2,000 reduction, and I just didn't understand what that was.
I can't tell you what it was. I can tell you that the number that's in there is addresses every single staff member. The admin assistant moved them all up, and I'm not quite sure if that was overspended or somebody else was in that budget last year.
Can you speak up?
Use the mic.
Sorry. So every single teacher, mostly the shared teachers at the elementary school, are all represented in that budget. I'm not quite sure what was in last year's budget that is now eliminated, or that we did have somebody retire, maybe the salary was different, But I can assure you that in that shared teacher line, all the teachers that are in that program, you know, sharing, going with different schools, is accounted for in that line.
So that's just a really big number to say, I don't know why it's $102,000 less. Can you get back to us on what the answer to that is, please?
I can tell you right now.
Okay.
But I can't give you people's names. No, I don't have. Okay. So FY.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay. So for FY18, the salary amount for the shared teachers was $353,780. So that was, when we did the original budget, there must have been more people in there, and it got changed from the original of last year's, when you voted the budget. So there is not such a significant change, it's almost the exact same.
I find there's a big discrepancy here. I have a budget paper that was passed out to us on 2/26/18, and on that same line item, the note on the sides with the figure of $358,261. And the notes were tech integration specialist and vocal music. So I want to know why that's in there if we've put that position back in.
No, I know you're looking at last year's budget.
No, that's 19.
Okay.
And this is the day, and that's the house.
Right, and so what's the dollar amount now?
The same exact figure.
Right, so why would that be different?
Because here you said you took that out to get there.
I can't go back to old ones. If this is where we're at, it was reduced and then put back in.
It wasn't put back in. And the figure is exactly the same
Okay.
as it was originally.
So,
When you took out that last year.
okay, so we're not looking at older, we're looking at a hearing for the public to give feedback on this budget. So we can, the public, so we can continue to answer questions that the public has, and I can take this up with you at another time.
I just think we need correct figures, that's all.
You have correct figures in front of you.
It doesn't appear to be, that's why we're questioning. And I
Well-
think we have the right to, and we need to question.
So I guess, I haven't said anything up to this point, but technically, you all have had this information, and we've had a lot of budget meetings, and there's been a lot of approval. This evening is specifically, the law provides for it so that your community can give you input, not for us to continue a conversation about the budget. So if there's anybody here, like Bob Raymond, that made some very accurate, saying, what is this about? That's good feedback to us. But the purpose of this meeting is not for us to talk about it, it's for us to listen, to listen to this community. Sure.
This lady's been standing here first, though.
It's okay.
Oh, please.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So you still haven't told us where that $100,000 discrepancy is, and as a member of the public, I would like to know.
So I don't know what, it's a prior sheet. So we've had many different renditions of that. So when I looked up last year's,
So you don't know where it is?
what do you mean, there is no, what the
don't-
discrepancy?
The discrepancy that we've been trying to ask you about.
So no, I don't know why in that version it didn't have it, in a prior version it did.
So the
But what I
shared-
can tell you is that all of the people that are in that budget are accounted for their salaries.
The shared teacher salary.
Yes. They're all accounted for.
Even though there's $100,000 difference in those two figures.
Well, it was last year versus this year. And when I looked at last year's numbers, that came up. And then at this year's numbers, it's the same, or it's a little bit more. What my admin assistant does is she takes this prior year and she rolls it up based on the contract language. So there's not money missing.
Well, you haven't really answered my question, but thanks.
You're welcome.
So I just want to take a second to point everyone's attention toward a report from the state auditor. It's called the Regional School Districts Municipal Impact Study. So go home, look this up. It's public information. It's at the state auditor's office. And it details a lot of the problems that are not just facing this district, but all of the regional school districts in the state and the rural school districts. And they admit that they underfund, the state is admitting in this report that they're underfunding transportation, that they're underfunding or not funding the mandates for the transportation for special needs students. That's especially on page 11. So just, I'm gonna point my finger to Boston for a minute, because these budgets have been cut and the communities are stretched. The people are doing, I think everybody in this room, whether you're on a select board, a finance, by the way, I'm on the Leiden Finance Committee and the Heart Committee. The administration, the teachers, everybody is stretching and doing the best they can with what little we have. And the state needs to pull it together and straighten out the funding that these rural districts need. So I just want to remind everyone that we're all in a difficult place. And this report is very refreshing to me because it reminds me, or it's validating that these problems are notated here by the state and that we're not the only ones that have them. So I just want to remind everybody and to talk to your representatives about these issues. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patty Solomon. I don't live here, but I've been teaching 3rd and 4th graders up in Leiden for the last 9 years, and I love working up here, and I love your kids. And I'm worried about our little school. And when I look at this budget, it doesn't come out and say that it's a plan to close Pearl Roads, but to me, it looks like a plan to close Pearl Roads, because if we no longer have our preschool students next year, the year after we won't have our kindergarten because those kids will probably stay where they are. And we also have a plan to put 3 grades in 1 classroom. We haven't really talked about that. Even though it is only 10 students, one teacher is stretched to try to teach 3 curriculums. I know, I teach 2 curriculums in math. It's not easy. And I don't see how I could teach 3, especially without any kind of aid, because there's no aid budgeted for that. And so I'm afraid that when parents look at this and they see what's going on, they're going to say, oh, it looks like Pearl Roads is closing, and they're going to send their kids somewhere else. Now, if that is the decision that people are going to make in the community, okay, but I don't feel like we're really making the decision. It's like the budget's making the decision for us. It's not coming out and saying that that's what's happening, but in fact, it feels like that will happen. And we've been educating our kids in Leiden for a long time. That school's been there more than 50 years. Miss Pearl Rhodes came in every day and she did everything. And I'll tell you, we wear a lot of hats too in our little school. And that went on for a long time. It's a proud tradition. Leiden used to have little schoolhouses all over. I know we don't have as many kids right now, but that doesn't mean we won't in the future. I'd like to see a vision where we get more choice kids up because we have such a great draw. You know, that people, maybe we need an after-school program. That's one of the things we're really missing. But I'm worried about our little school. If the community decides they want to close it, that's the decision to make. And it feels kind of irreversible. And it feels really sad because that little red schoolhouse is the heart of our community up there. And I'm saying our because I feel like I'm part of it, you know, because I love coming up and teaching there. So I just hope you all think about that.
I have a question on shared staff, the shared professional resources, emerging technology, both of those budgets, are those related to the STEAM project? Well, I would think that emerging technologies would be too. Are those part?
Yeah, on shared, we have the figures. Students that are out this year.
Those were the dollar amounts that the principals put in to try to fund some materials for the STEM initiative.
That's okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got a question, and maybe Ruth can answer this. Why is the salary for a nurse in Pioneer so much less than Bernardston or Warwick or Northfield?
So it's really difficult to find nurses to do the jobs, and so they come with different certifications. They all have to be certified. Some of them are just getting their licenses. Some are working part-time. Some are working full-time. The nurse in Warwick is working full-time because of that student. The nurse at Northfield, who is retiring, was a higher paid because of her years of experience. And then the high school, again, they don't have a union, so they kind of negotiate their own contracts, but a lot of it is, can we find the nurses to come, their quality of nursing, and then also, you know, negotiating pays with them.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on this year? Come on down.
Hi, I'm Nolan Kitfield. I'm here as a taxpayer and also as a teacher in the district. I appreciate that the presented budget today did focus on keeping personnel, positions, and I'm assuming that number does include the tech and band pieces that we talked about through that, whatever happened up there. But, so I appreciate that happening in this budget that's being presented today. I also, while I appreciate the careful choosing to cut items instead of personnel, I would just like to put a few things out there in consideration, and I don't know if they could be requested as a separate warrant or something. I don't know exactly how that works, but there are a few things that I feel like would take our schools that we're doing a good job, and we have scraped right to the bone on this. Even if you leave technology in there, we do need that. However, I would encourage making the curriculum coordinator full-time in district. I would recommend the Pioneer Guidance, the position that was being talked about, given the times right now. Support for our students is important in a lot of different ways. The school resource officer, I'm glad that that's still in the budget, and I have to say, I came to that debate a year ago really feeling like I don't want an officer in our schools. I don't want to feel like we need that. I don't want that. And what I've watched over the last year in our school, in the elementary school on a very small level, but what I've heard happens in the middle school and high school sounds like it has been to a great effect in a whole array of ways, you know, in terms of supporting students who need that happening here, in terms of safety for other students, in terms of knowing what might happen before it happens in a lot of different ways. So I'm glad to see that in there as well. I think I went to some training 4 years ago, I think, in rural Maine, and they had a one-to-one program in their schools up there, and I'm sitting there watching and hearing them talk about what they're able to do with their students and what their students can just go and engage in right away. And we are late to the table with that. That is really, that's something that should be happening, and starting in 9th grade is great. Those schools 4 years ago started in 3rd grade one-to-one. So I realize we can't do that all at once, but I encourage that to stay in. I encourage I know I spoke about this at the last meeting, but for anyone who wasn't there, we've cut money out of here related to our STEM initiative, and honestly, our district and our towns invested money and time. I invested time. I'm so frustrated, I can't even tell you, because of the time I've put in. And we got $200 this year because it was cut for this year. We got $200 for grade 3 at Northfield Elementary to buy science materials. That doesn't go very far. So I encourage us to step forward. I appreciate so much what Deb said about moving us forward. And we do need that. Hearing from Emma, it's so important that kids learn how to think and learn how to do what you've done, Emma. And we are in a different time. And the budget situation right now is really, really hard. But I would really encourage, keep this as it is, but look again at full-time curriculum coordinator in the district, the Pioneer guidance, STEM money, keep the technology.
Hello, I'm Autumn, and I'm actually one of the school of choice families that choose to send my son to Leiden Elementary School. I just wanted to speak to, he's in 1st grade right now, and he has had an exceptional 2 years at Pearl Roads. And to be honest with you, it kind of scares me with the budget and the talk of getting rid of a preschool program. I have a 3-year-old who I was thinking about sending up there. And with the possibility of the school, you know, closing because of the funding and whatever, makes me, I want my son, the educators at Pearl Roads have been phenomenal. Like, my son does very, very well there, and I don't know that he would do that well in the district that we live in. And it makes me really nervous for the future, you know, in the budget cuts and whatnot, of what his education is going to look like. So I just want to, you know, just make my voice heard at how important, you know, Pearl Roads has been to my son's education and his success. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kate Pontius. I have a son who's in Northfield in the 2nd grade and a son who will begin in kindergarten next year. And I applaud the principals for all their efforts at maintaining level services. But I have to say, sorry, I'm a nervous public speaker, which I guess goes to show you how important this is to me that I'm getting up here to speak. It's incredibly disheartening to not hear about the growth of programs and things being added, and any new suggestions that are thrown out there to make these schools even greater are challenged. And I'm looking at a long road ahead, hopefully, with my children thriving in these schools. And it's very disheartening, doesn't even, is probably too mild a term to hear about the lack of growth in the programming. And so it would just be really nice to hear about how we can expand programs, make these schools flourish, encourage more families to come to this town, and that would add to the benefit of the services to the rest of the community, the more families we have coming here. But if the school is just stagnant, families aren't going to come and families will actually leave. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rick Fontaine from Leiden, and I'm having a hard time understanding the rationale in taking Leiden's preschool children and teaching them in Bernardston and expecting them to come back to Leiden for kindergarten. I don't understand the rationale there. You're taking the kids out of their hometown where their friends are, where their families are, and I see one big thing here is that unless Leiden is able to maintain that school, you're not going to have that many young families moving into the area, and they're the growth of tomorrow for us, not the retirees that are there right now, which there are many. But if it's just a dollar savings thing, to me, there is no rationale in it. You're taking the kids out of their home. You're bringing them to Bernardston, and you can't tell me that they're going to want to go back to Leiden the following year. They're probably going to want to stay in Bernardston. Why? That's all I'm asking is why. To me, it does not make any sense at all, and it does not support the well-being and the continuity of that school. If I could have an answer, it would be nice. I think a lot of other people would like to hear that answer.
The attempt was to move the kids around a little bit. We've got so few numbers of students within the building that with the 33 that we have right now and looking at the numbers next year would be essentially the same. If we pull out the preschool students, bring them down to Bernardston, it will give a class of 9 for our 4, 5, and 6. That's still a very, very small cohort, 9 students in 3 grade levels. I've only begun the conversation with the pro-road staff about how we would address, let's say, the teaching of math, but the likelihood is going to be that we will have teachers teaching to their strengths, so that the present 5-6 teacher may be teaching math, the 3-4 teacher teaching language arts, social studies, that type of thing, but that plan is still coming to fruition, and it's trying to also make a little bit larger of a cohort within one class. If it stayed the way it is right now, next year's 5-6 class would only have 5 students in it. So it would be of some benefit to have a larger group.
Can I just ask a question regarding this? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that in our district, preschoolers are not bused.
That's correct.
So preschool is something that is offered by our schools.
And voluntary for families.
It's voluntary for families. So if your child is attending preschool, you are transporting them yourself. Whereas when a child is attending kindergarten, they get on the bus.
All right.
And go to their home school.
And presently with preschool, there have been cases where preschoolers from different towns have gone to different buildings. That's happening presently right now, depending on where openings have been and the willingness of parents to transport.
Or, where is convenient on their commute or things of that nature. I know many students attend private preschool and then matriculate in kindergarten.
I'm David from Leiden.
Rick, I appreciate you saying what you did about Leiden. I appreciate you saying what you did about Leiden, too, with your 1 or 2 children. My kids were in the program, too. And the woman in the peach, I appreciate early on you protecting the $30,000-$40,000 or so by trying to take out of the budget for protecting teachers. One thing that's not being talked about, I've been part of the Leiden Broadband Committee up in Leiden for 2.5 years. We are right on the edge of getting broadband in Leiden. We do not have broadband, we have DSL. Families, kids go where there are services. Leiden is, in my opinion, amongst the 30 to 35, 40 communities that are all working on getting broadband, is probably positioned the best, right along 91 corridor, right there next to Brattleboro, New Hampshire, Greenfield. It's positioned very well as a community that's right next to big towns, communities. So when we get broadband in there, which we hope is going to be within the year, it's not going to happen overnight, but I have a feeling you're going to see a slow rush of young kids coming back to particularly Leiden. That is right along the 91 corridor. Leiden gets right into Brattleboro quick, gets right into Greenfield quick. So I think it's really premature to be talking about closing Leiden. And as I'm a big believer in, my parents and grandparents paid for me and my parents to go to school and the $50,000 in technology and whatever. I'm going to do the same for the next generation. As long as I'm in that town, I will always provide, and I think that's how we should just do it. But I think Leiden's positioned well, and if we just give it some time, I don't think we want to close that school, because we could be in a position we're going to need that school.
Yeah, Jeff Knipe, Leiden Select Board. I just questioned the superintendent's salary. It's down to $70,000. It doesn't say part-time. I mean, I'll get to it now.
So in theory, when the budget was built, my salary, because I was superintendent and the business manager here, I split it in half. And so part of the salary is still in the superintendent's line. And if you look down, there's a new line. It's a budget manager, business manager line.
Right.
That has 50,000, so that's the other part of the salary. And you can notice that many of the line items at the top of the front page, that specifically is where the deductions have taken place on the district administrator page. Do you have any other questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. So district administration.
Three.
Right. So my salary was $141,714. It's down to $70,000. There was a travel of $3,500. That went down to zero. Superintendent's travel out of district was $1,500, stays that way. The assistant superintendent's salary was $111,150. It's down to $27,800 because our assistant superintendent is retiring sometime next year. Again, the travel went down to nothing from $3,000. The admin assistants, most of these other lines are the same. Record retention was stopped last year by the committee. And most, if you go down this line, well, you see the business manager at 50,000 increase, and everything else is just about level funded. Unemployment taxes went up to 40,000. That's because of in part by the layoffs we had the other year. Medicaid taxes a little bit higher. Our life insurance is a little bit less, but the reason for that is that I took the retiree health and put it, I had put only part of it into this line, and I put it into the school choice line, which we've always, in the past few years, used to pay the retiree health. And that pretty much sums it up. If you have any questions? There was a hand up there, yep.
So is the plan to share the superintendent and business manager, or is it to hire a part-time? Is there, I mean, what's the succession plan that you all have decided on?
There has been no decision, but don't give up yet. We've advertised with MASC and for a part-time superintendent, interim, 1 year with a possibility of 2. And we have been told that we can get a part-time retired, probably, superintendent for under $100,000. So the 71, I think, needs to be adjusted big time for us to be able to do that. And that's at me speaking to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and School Superintendents, and also retired people that have applied. We've also had put out there for anybody in the house that would like to apply, and that has been out there for a couple weeks. And after a conversation with Gil Montague, Mohawk, and Mahar withdrew first because of financial reasons, is what they said, and just enough problems of their own. They didn't want to have any of ours. And then secondly, Gil Montague said that their school committee thought that this was too quick to jump in bed with us. So that's not something we've given up on, but it's something we're not working on right away. We have not heard from Mohawk because I think the committee needs to make that decision. It's not my decision as chair to make. It's the committee's decision to decide what they want to do. And so hopefully at our next meeting, which is next week, we'll be able to do that. I've talked to MASBO, which is the Association of Business Managers, School Business Managers, and then to 2 other concerns that do school finances, and am awaiting sort of an estimate of what that would cost. But from MASBO, they're saying that they charge between $6,000 and $8,000 a month, and you multiply that by 12, and it's an awful lot more than 50,000, I'll tell you that. And I think by having those 2 figures in there, I think they need to be upped, because we're not going to be able to find anybody that will do our job, and it's legally, we have to have a superintendent and we have to have a business manager. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question or not, but it's sort of gloom and doom. But we're out there, and it's been advertised. And if you want to see the advertisement, you can look on probably the Massachusetts Association of School Committees has the best ad.
So from my understanding, if a superintendent is retired, this happened at one of your meetings, they can only work 6 months because they're taking
They
their
can work
retirees.
6 months full-time.
Right.
Or year-round part-time.
Oh, okay.
So we're hoping
what
that
you're
a
thinking.
part-time job will work, but we're not going to know that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I see a hand back there. Why don't you just line up here and I'll take you as...
So what you're saying is it's going to cost, you're saying you think it's going to cost $100,000 for a part-time superintendent and like more than $50,000 for a part-time?
I don't know.
So
I'm hearing that it's...
You're paying $140,000 right now for a person that does that job already. Why would we go to a part-time to part-time if we're going to pay more?
Because we don't have the person.
So why would we look for that, the same person, like a similar
You
person?
can't find that.
So you're saying if you advertise for that position, it would cost you more than $140,000?
Yes. Go for it.
Hi, my name is Kristen Potter. I live in Leiden, and I have two children one who's gone through the Leiden school and one who's currently there. And I'm hearing over and over that this is a level funded budget, but it doesn't feel level if Pro Roads is not going to have preschool and fourth graders are going to be in the same classroom as sixth graders. It feels vastly different to me than last
It's
year.
level funded, but not level serviced. There's a difference.
I agree with you. It's definitely not level serviced. And so, thank you. That's exactly what I want to point out, because this term level is getting thrown around and it's not level. Also, preschool, if there's no preschool, I think it will eventually diminish property values and young people won't want to come and all that, and I totally agree with that. But I also want put yourselves in the shoes of like a 9-year-old child who has to be in the same class with children who are close to 12. If you take the extremes of third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade, there's vastly different things going on in their lives. So I don't think it's a good environment for those kids. They play together in the schoolyard. That's not the same as being with them 6.5 hours a day. I mean, kids are growing up fast enough without escalating that. So if it came down to, a budget talk, start having the conversations, and maybe the school isn't viable over the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. If it's not viable, it's not viable. But to just say this is the budget, here it goes, doesn't feel like the conversations happened ahead of time. That's all.
We have been having budget subcommittee meetings that are open to the public since the beginning of January, and that certainly would have been an appropriate time to bring up some of these concerns. And that happens every year. Budget subcommittee meetings begin early in January at the latest, and it's a public meeting.
Good evening. Mike Townsley, resident of Bernardston. I think this Leiden issue kind of falls under the same issue as the band and arts did 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago it came out, and last week we had a meeting on it, and that was stopped dead in its tracks. But there was no discussion about it, and I think the scare tactics are what people are sick of. Now, to the Leiden issue, I think if people look back in history, because my kids, we were in Leiden at one time. They went to Leiden Elementary, and the numbers got down there, so the parents got together, and I believe it was in 2003 through maybe 04. Maybe Brenda can help me with that, because I think her child was affected by that. And they did go to Bernardston Elementary. I believe it was 5th and 6th graders. My concern for the kids that go to Leiden, go to Bernardston, is to make sure that they're getting a top quality education and being with the kids of their same age level. Now, as what happened in the past, you want to have your 6th graders or your 5th graders with the same age kids. So if you have 2 kids in a school that are in 6th grade, I would think that the parents would like their kids to be part of a 6th grade class. Bernardston has 2 6th grade classes, 13 I believe in each one. In 2nd grade, if 2nd grade's got 2 2nd grade teachers now in Bernardston, and you only have 2 2nd grade students in Leiden, if I was a parent, I would want my kids to be with the 2nd grade class instead of being mixed in with 1st through 3rd grade, and vice versa with the 4th through 6th grade. So, but the key to this whole discussion is there needs to be talks prior, months, even possibly 12 months to a year, over a year prior to doing something like this. But it shouldn't be happening here, and it shouldn't be happening as scare tactics. It should have been happening 6 months ago. Now, I've also mentioned at the school committee meetings to start discussions with moving 6th grade to Pioneer. There's 57 6th graders in the district. Now, if you can provide a better education, now I'm not trying to save money, a better education by moving the 6th grade class to Pioneer to give them more opportunities to get ahead, that's what we need to look at. It may cost you the same, it may cost you a little bit more, but is it going to give them a better education? But those discussions need to start at a long-term level, not like they do with the band in the arts 2 weeks ago and said that they're cutting it and had no discussion. That, I've been going to the subcommittee meetings, there's only been about 5 people on average at those meetings, and last week there was over 50-something people because of that. And that's not the way that, I don't know who brought it up, but that's not the way to handle the way you run the school committee or subcommittees. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, I think I'm correct in this, that the hearing, these are all, first of all, these are all very good points. It's good to have these discussions about Leiden and about reconfiguring classrooms and so forth. But I think at tonight's hearing, am I right about this, Madam Chairman, that we should be taking questions relating specifically to the budget for FY19. I don't believe, I know there will be a lot of discussions in the future about all of the issues that have been brought up about Leiden and other, and it will be on several different fronts. There's different groups working with it, but am I correct in assuming that this is not going to be affecting what we're talking about tonight with the FY19 budget? So if I don't want to be misunderstood and trying to cut people off on that, but
with the exception of the preschool into Bernardston.
right, with that exception, right.
I would like to just address the fact, my name is Brenda Beck. I wear many hats in this district. I've been a past parent, I'm a taxpayer, I'm an employee. I work in the accounts payable here for the district, and I also work in the early education department. I'm the administrative assistant. And I just wanted to let you know that at this point, I've received applications, am in the process of receiving applications for preschool for the district. Applications are due into this office by March 31st. At this time, I have 1 application for preschool for Full Rose.
Hi, Christian Gerton. I'm from Northfield. I have 3 kids in the district. My wife's a teacher in the district also. We moved to Northfield in 2010, and I started coming to some of these meetings, and it'd be me and the 4 principals and maybe a reporter, and maybe a select board member from one of the towns. So I'm very encouraged to see all of the people that are here now. There's times when it feels a little bit like a downward spiral in the district. I hope that's not the case. I do hear good things coming out of Pioneer as well. But I think that, I hope what the school committee is hearing at this hearing from people is that people are looking for more. I've been looking for the committee to pass something like an aspirational budget and present it at town meetings and advocate for it. I'd like to see a superintendent who shows up at all the town meetings and advocates for it. I'd like to see school committee members from those towns advocating at town meetings for the budget. That's a budget that people are asking for. I hear people asking for more resources, more teachers, more technology, and a better anchor in our towns. And I hope we're hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that input. That's exactly why these hearings are held annually before the school committee makes their decision on a budget. And I think that we've written down a lot of notes, and when you all came up to talk, and I really appreciate the Leiden folks being here, it really does make a difference. When you use your voice, we listen, and it gives us fuel to be able to say, this is why we need to increase this budget. So thank you for coming.
One other question, Ruth, and I know it was a suggestion at the budget hearing, or the last budget meeting, to put $50,000 into food service, but that really wasn't discussed very much, and I'm a little wondering about that. This is on the district administration, page 3. My concern is the $50,000 into food service when it really wasn't discussed.
It wasn't what? Oh, it wasn't discussed. Okay. So we have a $250,000 deficit in our food lunch program, and we have put in $50,000 that is dedicated to actually going toward supporting the food lunch and trying to get the deficit down. Annually, it's about, I think it's like, I don't know, Gail, do you have a good number for what we actually overspend our budget in food service every year, or this past year?
50,000, and last year it was 35.
35, okay, so it was 50,000, then it was 35, and we're hoping it goes down a little. So we're putting the 50,000 in to cover the overage, and then also the rest of it, the balance will go to offset the deficit in that fund.
We had also heard from actually Bob Rabin, who is selectman in Bernardston, that it would be a possibility to put a special warrant article on the 4 town meetings to help us out on this deficit. Bob, can you tell us what's happening with that, or am I putting you on the spot too much?
Well, I called the school 2 weeks ago. Haven't got anything from the school committee on any kind of article for any of the town warrants, even if we could do it.
So are you saying you can't do it?
Who knows? It's up to the people, not us to decide. We can certainly put an article on the warrant. You guys can't pay it. I mean, you're gonna try, but we noticed the figure's like 291,000 right now in your figures for the lunchroom deficit.
So we need to get you the numbers after our school committee meeting next week for the warrant, for the budget, and also anything else that we need to, for a special article.
Right. This figure right here, guys, we are for the school. I have 4 grandsons in this school. This budget calls for $394,000 more dollars from the towns. $394,000 above last year. Seldom do the selectmen cut the budget. We cut what the wish budget is. It's $394,000 more. And I would like to remind everybody that 4 years ago, the towns took out a $400,000 loan for computers. We're paying off that, the last payment this year. So it's not like we don't give a care. Of course we care. But now 50 grand more because what we have is useless. So somebody has to decide how the money should be spent, where the money is spent, and we have nothing to say about it. The select boards, or the finance committees. These people right up here decide, or the superintendent decides. I'm not trying to lecture anyone. I want the best for my grandsons too. I'm very hopeful they'll get a hell of an education here. But it comes a point when somebody has to answer the question, where is the money coming from? But you get us an article for the warrant, and we'll see if we can put it on. I don't know how Northfield feels. And the other thing I would like to mention is this. The town of Bernardston has poured $500,000 into BES over the last 5 years. $500,000. And that doesn't have anything to do with, well, these people recommended what we did, but we did it. So that's above and beyond whatever the operating budget of this school calls for. So we are trying to do the very best we can, and I know Northfield spent a ton of money on their school trying to refurbish things that need to be refurbished. And guess who's paying all the bill? You guys. Well, I'm going to tell you right now that some people in here are more capable than other people pay it. Why don't all of you ante up 400 or 500 extra, make out a check when you pay your taxes and send it in and say, this is to go to Northfield Elementary, or this is to go to Bernardston to pay some of the bills. Because most people in here can afford it. I can afford it. I don't want to afford it, but I can. Because you can't get it out of everybody. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lecture. I've been on the select board for 12 years. All we're trying to do is to do the best we can. And we're not the only ones in trouble. Everybody, all the school systems are in trouble. We were Mohawk Monday night, and everybody is struggling. Everybody. Thanks.
Now we know why Bob's such a good teacher. Yes, Jeff.
I just want to say, Bob and I have talked numerous times about this budget deficit on the school budget, and this was brought up last year, and we talked about to the school committee or whatever it is, about getting a special warrant on the towns to pay this deficit off once and for all, because bottom line, it affects who's writing the checks out to the district. I mean, what, every 2 weeks or every month or whenever the warrants go out. I mean, you've got almost a $300,000 deficit there. You're only working with 2/3 of your money. How many times have you said, have you got enough money to write out the checks for the employees of the district to cover it? You know, it's a simple procedure. Put it on the warrant and ask the towns if they'll go for a 2-year loan or a 3-year loan and pay this deficit off and get back to zero. We're coming in with a new administration in another 3 or 4 months, whatever it is. They're going to walk in the door and they're looking at a deficit again. I think they should be starting with a clean slate. That's my vote, you know?
All right, yes.
My question is, if we do that, is there a plan in place now that that lunch will not build a deficit again?
I don't know. Gail, do you want to speak to that?
Last spring or this fall, the employees who work in the cafeteria assisted me with brainstorming as well as the principals did, and we came up with a plan that I presented to school committee a few times. And right now, we are not, I'm going to answer this with not including the deficit that has occurred since I have been here. That if you just look at this year, we are a small amount ahead. And there is a plan to continue to try and save money for next year. Obviously, given the fact that food increases, salaries increase, and we're trying our very best to consolidate as well as still provide the meals that are expected by the state, but not spend a lot of money.
I notice you've got on here the special articles for PVRS, the capital recommendations. And could you give us the breakdown on it? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Could you give us a breakdown on that so we'll know, because we want to get our warrant set up for town meeting?
Gail, can you give her
Okay.
the...
Thank you. In other words, these are not going to change then?
No, these are the final ones. There's one for $12,000 for the Pioneer.
Yeah.
Which is small, to do some carpet. And
Okay.
then you have specifically the ones for Northfield.
Yes,
that-
we have.
That go directly to you. Those aren't going to change.
Yeah,
Those
that-
are complete.
Our committee has put those on the warrant for that.
Yes.
There's, just so you know, like there's $100,000 for electrical upgrade. That's just one part of it.
Right.
That sort of thing. So, yeah, if we could have the, you know, we just roughly say 50% for Northfield, but can we get specific on this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, absolutely.
Thanks.
Does anyone, looking through these capital improvements, does anyone have any questions on them? If you're looking through, and we'll let.
I don't see anything from lot for Leiden. Are we all set? Bob? Oh. Jeff, do we need anything from Leiden?
There was a couple things on the list, but I stopped down there one time, Bob wasn't there, but I left a message there. If there was gonna be some capital improvements or whatever it is, to let us know, so we could get one more. I know there's still a roof issue, so.
The only thing at Pro Roads that we've just gotten into conversation on was some work in at the lower level in the library lab, but that hadn't come to fruition yet.
Could somebody explain the capital recommendations for the high school?
Carpet. I know, I'm just looking for the page. There we go. It's carpet, and this is a phase-in project that began perhaps 4 or 5 years ago, that every year an amount of money would be asked for from the towns, and again, it is the town's decision whether to do this or not, that 2 or 3 classrooms, and in this case spaces, in the building would be designated to be recarpeted. So that's all that's on the capital for Pioneer is carpet for this year.
Is the whole here carpeted?
It is.
Would you looking for patch for the gym wall too?
Yes. Thank you.
That needs to be done because it
It
really
does.
is a safety issue.
It is a safety issue, and it was on last year, and it was moved down.
I see a body stand up, but I can't see who's behind the body, so. No, I mean you. Sorry about that.
I'm wondering about the Bernardston capital projects. There are 2 options. Is this, so I'm hoping someone will explain, but is this one of those cases where if we do option 1, which is less money, we might in 5 years or whatever be paying more for fixing it up? So anyways, can someone explain why there are 2 options and one more?
The 2 options, again, are to give the towns the choice, because again, it is the town's choice whether to vote these or not. And the first choice in Bernardston is the replacement of the phones and the bells and the clocks to make them all work. Right now, they are not working. And the second choice includes voice over internet, which means that it all has to be rewired. So there are 2 different choices.
Tell them the advantage of the second, of the more expensive choice.
Sure. Jane would like me to tell you the advantage of the second choice. So the second choice, voice over internet, the phones here at Pioneer throughout the building are voice over internet, and that means that it's connected to your computer. So when the call comes in, it registers on your computer. It also leaves a voicemail. I can check my voice messages from home on my computer. Anything else?
Well, it rewires the building.
Right, it does.
That's the important-
It does rewire the entire building. And Pioneer already has it.
And once everybody gets it, we'll all communicate.
Right.
But what's the recommendation?
We're gonna go with the second one.
The select board and finance committee in Bernardston, we decided that we would go with the second option, 42,000. One of the reasons for that, as we all know, with security and stuff coming down the road, if we upgrade our wire now, we'll be able to hook into things that are coming down the road. Wiring we have right now, we have no idea how bad that is. It's been there forever. So we just thought that 42,000 was a better option to go with.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions to come before us? I see somebody walking down. Oh, it's just John. I didn't see who it was. Is there any other questions to come before this hearing this evening? If not, Ruth, do you want to say anything else? Okay, we're good. Our next meeting is a week from tonight in the library, and it will be when the school committee will vote on this budget. If it is at 7 o'clock in the library on the 22nd. So if you're interested, we'd love to see your faces again. Thanks, and have a good evening. Would any of the committee like to move to adjourn? All those in favor? The men on the back, are you voting to adjourn? Yes. All right. We are adjourned.